is everyone doing today?
Yeah, great.
Pretty good. Might just kind of kick off with a bit of an introduction. Obviously, we know the topic of today. Hopefully, you all know the topic of today, and that's why we're here. We're kind of just going to be going into kind of what it means to be a website manager and a little bit of an insight into the day in the life of some website managers. As we can see, we have a couple of guests here, but we'll get into that in a second. Just a bit of quick housekeeping before we do kind of kick off. If anyone's kind of joined these webinars before, this will look very familiar to you. Please feel free to use the live transcriptions on Zoom. I see someone's already enabled it, which is good. The recording and the slides will be sent to you afterwards as well, and that will also have closed captioning. And feel free to ask questions, pop things in the chat. I'll be monitoring it, and I'll check it at the end, and we'll get to some Q&A at the end as well. Cool. Just a bit of a quick introduction into myself. So hi, I'm Kainez. I'm one of the account managers at Monsido, and I'm here joined by Rupert, Dotan, and Sophie, who I'll let introduce themselves.
Yeah, hi. Do you want to go in order of you mentioned or in order of the Excel?
You go ahead.
Yeah, okay, cool. Hi, I'm Rupert, the digital comms manager at RSPCA New South Wales. My portfolio entails pretty much end-to-end digital, so from website, BDMs, social, both paid and organic. Also, we take care of any accoutrements that come with website, which is usually Google Paid, Google Business, and all that side of things. We also manage the digital component of the fundraising side of things, and we act as a support team for the respective pillars of the organization.
Sophie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, cool. Hello, I'm Sophie. I'm fairly new at RSPCA. I've only been there since I think March now, but I started as the communications assistant. So my role includes like supporting Rupert on all things website, digital. My main sort of duties have been updating and refreshing content on the website. So doing a lot of the blogs. Yeah. And back to you.
Everyone, my name is Dotan Caspi. I'm the digital manager at the Alcohol and Drug Foundation. My role is I really am responsible for all customer-facing online websites and platforms. So that doesn't include social media, but I look after everything that's customer-facing online, right through strategy to the technical upkeep of the sites themselves.
Cool. Well, firstly, thank you all of you for joining today. I'm really excited for the discussions. I know that you have some similar experiences in common with each other, but also some quite different experiences in terms of different teams, different sites, and just kind of different, I guess, years of experience in your current role as well. So I think it'll be a really interesting discussion with everyone. But before we kind of get into the main sort of fireside chat portion of it, let's kind of briefly run through the agenda for today. So we'll kind of start off by just kind of setting the scene into a couple of key points of what it means to actually be a website manager. I know a lot of you in the watching right now probably also have websites that you do manage yourselves. I know all of you here today as well all manage websites on your own. So this will be very standard for you, but a bit of a quick kind of walkthrough of that. Then we'll jump into the fireside chat, and then at the end, as usual, a couple of quick resources to kind of help you out, and then also a Q&A session as well. Firstly, a quick pulse check just to make sure everyone's still with us and no one's left already. So let me know what challenges you face in being a website manager today. You can also drop in the chat as well if you have a few more insights that you wanted to add. Let me just start the poll. Yep. So is it staying on top of ongoing website optimization, so the day-to-day sort of maintenance, aligning your expectations with your stakeholders, a lack of resources and a lack of time? I think that one I hear quite often. And for anything else, feel free to drop it in the chat. I know Rupert and Dotan and Sophie, I don't think you are able to vote in the poll, unfortunately, but do either of you have a key one? Maybe you can
I'm just trying
answer.
to click all of the above.
Yeah.
That's an option. Yeah.
I guess that counts, yeah, honestly. Yeah, Kim has also said yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say any of those in particular. It's juggling all the aspects.
Same for Amanda as
Guess it
well. Yeah,
depends
that's
on
something.
so I guess it depends on the time of day, time of the week as well, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit? So is it based on just different workloads, or is it based on specific times of the year as well for campaigns? Or
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, if it's looking at a week, our optimizations that we look to push, we stay away from Fridays because we don't do any deployments on a Friday as a general best practice. But
yeah,
during campaign periods, we have our larger campaigns. That means we'll have aligned expectations of stakeholders where what they can leverage, where they can leverage it on the website, how we pollinate their campaign throughout the website as well. Also in terms of resourcing. So during the heavier periods, there is capacities are limited, right? So we've got to work on the priorities. So is that going to be coming through as working on a campaign level basis, or is it the stakeholder management side of things in terms of making sure they know what they can get? And also some of our stakeholders aren't as digital, and their expectations as well need to be aligned with what our website can do for them at times. It's not just it goes on the website, it will succeed. It's work that goes behind it.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's time of year to a certain extent, but it's really balancing whether it's project work or our which tends to steal priority, or whether it is our kind of regular optimization stream of work that's coming through. So it really depends on I guess which year. At the moment, because we have just finished a major project, we are heavily focused more on that optimization, pitching in new projects, looking for funding, that sort of thing.
it sounds like all around, it's never going to be just one challenge. It's always kind of a group, a mix of things and a mix of other things, not just internally within the team, but also more on a wider scale with all the stakeholders as well. I think that Gino said, tracking stakeholder ownership of content. Stephen said keeping a balance between managing both up and down. So that kind of seems to be across the board. And then I think for the poll itself, I can see the results. If I just end the poll, we can see that staying on top of ongoing website optimization and lack of resources are definitely at the top of what most people have responded to. That I'm seeing some nodding here, so I'm guessing that's kind of across the board then. So we can see kind of what that looks like as well. Just kind of moving on as well, we'll have a look at maybe some of the importance of being a website manager. Feel free as well, Rupert, Sophie as well, or Dotan, if you do want to weigh in on any of these points. Otherwise, we'll kind of leave some of your insights for the main Fireside chat portion of it.
Okay,
but I'll just run through just a very quick kind of framing of what it means to be a website manager as well. So obviously it can differ for some people in different organizations. Sometimes it's just a team of one person or someone who's split across multiple different roles. So it's kind of half a role and then they're doing half of something else. Or sometimes it can be much more scaled with a wider team or wider teams, plural, focused on different things as well and different aspects. One team for digital, one for IT, for example, and one for the content. And in a lot of different organizations, the responsibilities can also fall with different teams. I think for everyone here, it's mostly on the communication side of things. But for some teams, that expertise can kind of sit more with IT that are managing the website and managing the content. So it's not always that dedicated website managers will be there, but if there are dedicated website managers like yourselves, kind of like what we've seen with that poll, usually it's not just one thing you're doing. You're kind of responsible for coordinating everything from the design to the content to the technical setup. Even if you're not 100% hands-on with everything, you might work with an agency, but you're delegating that task. So you're still kind of at the forefront of coordinating that. But yeah, what I can hear and what I've seen a lot of is regardless of what your team setup is like, and I know we've got some different people here as well today who have very different team setups, but at the end of the day, managing a website kind of entails quite a lot. there's a lot more than just what we kind of see when we're browsing websites in the front end. There's all the back end things, you know, the performance, making sure the load time's there, the actual hosting and the servers and the kind of considerations of which CMS or tools to use, actually creating the content in the first place before it can actually be published. It has to come from somewhere. Ongoing maintenance and optimization, and any projects and campaigns that need to be considered as well. And then kind of a little bit of a snapshot into what a website manager does. My hunch is that this is definitely not a complete list. There's definitely a lot more that goes into it than just this. But as a forefront, these are some kind of common responsibilities. Let me know if there are any here that don't really fall into your wheelhouse, or maybe falls into someone else from your team. But typically it's focusing on the UX for any site visitors, so the design, the tasks, everything like that. Communicating with your stakeholders as well. So that could be aligning with what tools and resources that you need as a team to kind of help you succeed, aligning on KPIs and what is actually achievable versus what needs to be achieved. Any updates and any redesigns that need to happen, those typically happen every couple of years, just to kind of stay on top of any, you know, any tools or any hosting and servers that kind of get deprecated and need to be updated over time, refreshes to just kind of stay current as well in the market. Security updates as well and things like that. And then just different versions and translations is a really important point. There are a lot of websites that maybe have multiple languages or multiple language offerings, or maybe just need some kind of a translation offering as well, just dependent on who's visiting your site. I think in a lot of regions, there are very multicultural and multilingual societies, so it's really good to be able to kind of make sure that you can coordinate that, even if it's offerings that aren't in your mother language, so being able to kind of coordinate that as well. But now that we've kind of had a look at that, and if either of you have any kind of insights around those tasks and kind of those roles and what makes a website manager, maybe we can kind of go into that and kick off with our fireside chat as well. So of those kind of roles, I saw, Jotan, you were kind of nodding quite a lot along with the translation side of things. Could you elaborate on if that kind of resonated with you a bit?
Yeah, sure. It's just that's something we've recently introduced on our website. The Alcohol and Drug Foundation works, we're a national organisation, and we work a lot with marginalised groups and a wide range of different people across Australia. And in the past, what we've done is taken on specific translation projects where we take a specific resource for a specific community and a language group, and we'll translate that specifically. But being a not-for-profit, we don't have huge budgets, and I just realized it's not a very scalable approach to translation. So we've recently introduced a tool which translates the website content into over 100 languages. And I guess that comes with a whole new set of challenges. I don't speak 100 languages, I just speak one. And so we did as much testing as we could with those within the org that speak multiple languages, but it introduces a whole new set of challenges, but as well as opening up the important information we provide to a much bigger audience, which I think is important.
No, that's really cool. I guess your next step would be learning 99 more languages. But aside from that, that's really cool to kind of recognize that user base basically, and making sure that the website is as inclusive so that as many people as possible can get that support that your organization kind of provides as well. So being able to kind of leverage that, understand that, I'm sure probably some of those points from before as well would have come into play, where you'd have to kind of liaise with a lot of stakeholders, do a lot of kind of testing, coordinating, and figuring out with the team what actually works and what you need as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of coordination for any change or new feature for the website. I'm sure everyone on the panel would agree. Yeah.
One question that I always find really interesting, and something that I think would kind of help us to get a little bit more insight into kind of all of your specific roles in your websites as well, is basically whether you inherited your current website or whether you helped build it up as well. And I think that's always a really important consideration, because I hear from a lot of website managers who start new in a role and they suddenly have to have this whole website that they have to now take the responsibility for, and they have to manage it. And it's, they have to understand all of the nitty-gritties of the behind the scenes, and they haven't seen it before. Rupert, maybe you could kind of kick off with kind of going into that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah. So I inherited the website from my predecessor. There was quite a steep learning curve, just because it was essentially, RSPCA has been around for 150 years, and having to catch up on that in terms of what the organization does, but the respective, there are federated organizations, what New South Wales does, what National does, and how we've basically implemented that onto the website. So understanding that, plus the branding that went into the website as well. So it's quite a high volume of content and insights you had to kind of pull quite quickly. But what I found the best way to do it was just start off by looking at the top hitting pages, working your way down, looking for improvements. Is there any low-hanging fruit? Because you're coming in there with, I guess, a fresh set of eyes as well. So any low-hanging fruit as a client, customer, user, donor, and seeing what can be achieved relatively quickly, and then scoping things out, optimizations out as you go. But in terms of the back end of it, that's still an ongoing learning process. We've got such a complicated back end and integrations with plugins and bits and pieces, because we not only take donations, we also have to adopt out our animals as well. Plus, we have integrations with our CRM, which is Salesforce, our CRM, email clients, all sorts of pieces that you need to be across, because inevitably things do go wrong, things don't talk, and being able to troubleshoot. But if you can't troubleshoot, being able to leverage the agency and point them in the right direction, or know who to actually ask and identify, okay, something's wrong with this. What do we do? So I won't lie, I'm still going. It's 1 year, 8 months in, but it's something we're looking to kind of resolve a lot more with standard operating procedures, which we're putting in, so knowledge isn't lost, but also conducting a brand new website refresh, website rebuild, which I'm spearheading. So this then allows myself to kind of work with something that I'm a bit more comfortable with, and still provide that fresh set of eyes, but being able to then input new best practices, new trends, adopt new technologies that weren't around when the website was first built out, the way technology moves. So it's an interesting ongoing journey of discovery.
Yeah, and that's really such an interesting point too, because I guess for you, the answer is kind of both. Like, you inherited the current website, but then you're also in the process of building a new website. So, if I ask you this question a couple months from now, you'll say, I built it. It's me.
Yes, exactly.
I was here.
Yeah, it's done. 3-second answer.
Yeah, done. Done deal.
Yeah.
What was the first thing you did then when it came to kind of being able to see the existing website that you inherited? And what was your first step to really understanding it?
So I've always been a fan of, for lack of a better term, getting your hands dirty. So seeing the inner workings, there are always things that you kind of go, this isn't working well in my opinion. But having said that, I've learned that there's also a rhyme or reason for why everything is done, for the most part at least. So understanding the limitations, the framework. So once I've got what we are able to and what we can't do, and what can be done cost effectively and what can't be done cost effectively, then I can start providing my inputs, and not just trying to shoot for the moon for projects that essentially will never come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Dotan? I think you've been in your current role for now a good 7 years now.
Yeah, so quite a while. I guess for me, I have to answer that kind of both similar to Rupert. So I was the first digital hire for the Alcohol and Drug Foundation, and I was brought on to kind of put together a digital team, a new way of working, and a strategic direction for digital for the organization. And when I came in, the Alcohol and Drug Foundation, or we call it ADF, the ADF had over 8 different websites on different platforms with different branding run by different agencies, because traditionally, and I think this is common in a lot of not-for-profits, websites are built for a specific contract or a specific project or program without thought of the cohesive brand or overall experience. And so my first task was introducing, agile practice, bringing a digital team on board, but then looking at how to consolidate these 8 different websites down. It took years, but I'm happy to say, now we have 3 major websites and 2 major platforms, custom platforms, all running on the same technology stack, and all managed in the same way, which is so much easier. But it was a long process. I think one of the biggest challenges was consolidating, and I think it was 4 different websites down into one central ADF website, and really building the brand and the SEO from scratch. So, which, as most people on this webinar would agree, is very challenging. But I was lucky in the sense that I was brought on to do that. So I got to shape the way that we handled the consolidation, to really guide the right choices around technology, and to introduce just some, standard ways of working for the digital team, which have kind of expanded out now to the broader marketing and communications teams. And yeah, so a bit of both. I inherited, but quickly got rid of and built new.
I think one key point that I heard kind of both of you mention was that some of your key focuses were kind of consolidation. So for Jeraton, definitely with consolidating those websites into kind of a unified brand presence. And Rupert, for you, I think it was more consolidating all of that content that was kind of already there from the 150 years of history with RSPCA, and kind of making sure that that was cohesive. And then after that initial stage, well, I guess it's always ongoing, but kind of working on the general maintenance and optimization and the more day-to-day things. Maybe Rupert, not completely day-to-day for you, because I know you're doing the redesign, and that's not an every single day occurrence necessarily. I don't think you're constantly doing redesigns, but alongside that, there's still the current optimization of the existing site. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of generally the theme of today as well. So what does your day-to-day look like? How is your website set up? And that could be the functions, it could be the general setup of it, it could be the team structure, that the different people that kind of work towards making that. Rupert, I might kick it off to you, kind of start with that.
Yeah, thank you. So normally the day starts off with just making sure that there wasn't any downtime. For example, when outside of hours, normally our agency is quite prompt with that. After that, kind of going through our top pages, we've got a dashboard set up to identify what our key pages are, how they're performing, identifying if there are any dips or peaks or troughs, and trying to tease out the thread a bit to understand what the whys and the hows. Sometimes there is it's just that organic up and down that usually happens seasonally or outside of during campaigns, or depending on how much content is being pushed, is directing traffic to our sites. And once we go through that, so it's a really interesting place right now, because any website optimization that we do, or any sort of additional feature or functional builds that we would like to include and leverage, we have to now future-proof to make sure that it is transferable to the new site. Or is it a question of, should we wait till we actually build the new site to then incorporate as a catch-all kind of system? So it's that balance, and it's also, I mean, as we know, budgets are quite limited being in the fundraising and charity space. So trying to make our dollar go as far as we can and without compromising our user experience and frustrating our audiences, I guess. So that's kind of how the first part of the day. Also, we, as I said, we have quite a large content strategy that we're putting into place as well, which Sophie is working hard on as well. And the reason being is, as you mentioned, SEO is challenging. It's always ongoing, and we found that we have to stay relevant and current. Otherwise, the issue we face is our audiences go elsewhere, and to absorb this information, which the issue at hand is if the information is incorrect and this misinformation that gets purported as the truth. So we'd rather keep the conversation on our channels, on our pages. So SEO, content strategy, so reviewing that as well. And we are heavily driving our social to drive traffic to our pages as well, where we engage our advocates, bring our detractors to our own channels so then we can have this discussion with them and perhaps turn a detractor to an advocate. So that's going through my entire week now. And usually midweek is our touch base, where we discuss how the previous week went, how our stakeholder management's going, anything to flag, anything that we're looking forward to doing, and also any barriers that we need to alleviate that would potentially be seen either week or 2 weeks or whenever. And this is especially useful when we have a team meeting, because this collaboration, we're, I guess, joining our minds to kind of solve what may seem like a simple solution. When we provide an omni-channel approach, it becomes a lot more of a time-consuming solution and challenging solution. So that's kind of how my day/week goes. In terms of the stakeholder management side of things and the balancing of projects, this changes as seasonally as we have large campaigns or periods where we don't have as large campaigns. But the stakeholder management, that's quite important, because at the end of the day, their pillars, their remit is the most important. But you having that overarching business objective and having to overlay that onto their pillar, we provide the insight of, yes, while your pillar is important, organizationally, this needs to be slightly lower down the queue. So that's managing their expectations and also the deliverables that they hope to kind of get out of it as well. And educating, just not everyone's digital, the same way that I'm not a finance person, and I've had finance educate me on certain things, and we educate respective teams on best practices. So going forward, they can then start leveraging that knowledge as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
How about yourself, Shotan?
Yeah.
Well, day to day. Well, we're slightly, I guess our website is slightly different in that we're not a fundraising organization. Our main ADF website, 80 to 85% of the traffic is organic search. And we have two other websites which are for specific community programs which we run, and those are predominantly driven by campaigns. I guess day to day, we have stand up every morning. So myself and the broader marketing, I sit within a marketing and communications business unit. So the broader team has a stand up every morning where we go through work in progress. And then we have a smaller team weekly kind of huddles as well, where my digital team gets together and we talk through any insights. So we have a set of dashboards which we go through regularly. So our analytics dashboards, we go through our Monsido scans as well, which we use for our SEO, accessibility, any kind of technical issues, as well as we have a lot of kind of flags set up within Monsido to alert us to any kind of issues with language that has been uploaded to the website, or if we need to kind of change one word or one piece of evidence or a reference. And so I guess day to day, there's a portion of it which is around general admin and upkeep. So check in on the monitoring, making sure everything's running okay, have a queue of new content. We publish a lot of content. And then the kind of technical upkeep side as well. I guess a lot of my day is more on that stakeholder engagement side. So each major kind of program, or in my case, website, has a steering group. So I sit on all the steering groups, where I get the strategic view of what's happening and what's wanted from that program, which I then can translate and filter down to my team. And we usually have at least one major project which we're running at the time. So it's always striking that balance.
Yeah.
But I guess day to day, half the time is around that optimization and upkeep, and about half of it is on new strategic work. Yeah.
And how do you strike a balance then between that? So to be able to manage these major projects that obviously are, quite important, your stakeholders are aware of them, so they kind of have an expectation, and then you still have to do the general maintenance also.
Well, that's always a challenge. I don't think I've found the perfect way to do it. I have, so in my team, so the makeup of my team, I've got two digital product managers and a team member whose sole focus is analytics and reporting. We do a lot of reporting. We're primarily government funded. And so from a project perspective, if it is a project related to one of the websites or platforms which is managed by one of my product managers, then they will do the bulk of that project work, and I just give oversight and reporting up to board. Then if the project is, I guess, is either on the core ADF website or is a new strategic project, then I generally am the person leading that project. So at the moment, I guess we've just finished a major platform build and have released that. So that's taking the pressure off the team a little bit. So we're in a good space. So my focus is, for my project time, which is about half my time, is focused on new strategic projects. So business cases, pitches into government or to the board. And I guess I try and keep an even split, but it doesn't always work that way.
Fair enough. And then in terms of kind of going back to the stakeholders as well, this is a question for both of you. Going back to kind of stakeholders and managing expectations, what are some of those key metrics of the website that you kind of that you kind of always keep on top of? So those KPIs.
I guess.
So go on.
Oh, sure. All right. So we have kind of three major websites. The main ADF website, we run a program called, okay, good question, how large? So the main ADF website is, we get about 6 million users a year. So that's the highest traffic website which I manage. And as far as how much content, I think we sit around the 500 or 600 pages of content for that site. And it has a number of kind of tools built into it, which I kind of see a little bit differently. I'm happy to talk about more. The other two websites are much lower traffic and for specific projects, programs. And so I'm reading things as I'm
That's
talking.
okay. We'll get to the questions at the end. Anyways,
Yeah.
we'll definitely make sure we get through to all of those.
So as far as KPIs, there's quite a few levels of KPIs which I have to manage. So one would be the kind of funder level reporting KPIs, and then the board KPIs, and then my internal team metrics. So the higher level metrics are usually focused on user engagement or sheer volume of traffic. Although it depends on the strategic priority at the time. So there's a combination. So it's traffic, it's engagement, and then conversions based on usage of specific tools within the website. So primarily the function of the main website is to provide evidence-based information about alcohol and other drugs. But also we have specific tools with specific goals, like a tool called Path to Help, which is designed to guide people to the most appropriate support services if they're struggling with alcohol and other drug use. So for that specific tool, the KPIs are around conversions and then pathways into support. How many people finished going through a tool and then actually ended up going and connecting in with a service. Whereas the other sites, the KPIs are mainly focused around getting new program participants in, so converting new, getting new clients, I guess, and around usage of resources or usage of key aspects of the platforms which we manage.
How about yourself, Rupert, for the RSPCA side?
Yeah, so in terms of KPIs, we try to draw. So we've got, so as you can imagine, our site has two, well, can be argued, but one of our larger pillars that are mostly well known are the adoption pages. So our adoption pages are a big piece of our pie because there's so much flow, and if we don't get adoption numbers up, our shelter gets full. If our shelter gets full, that puts stress on other shelters. It's huge. So one of our biggest pieces is adoptions, and if we see a decrease in our adoptions or if we see a decrease in visits, then we've got issues. So adoptions are a large piece, and our adoption searches as well are the largest page or the largest terms that are searched on our website and also for RSPCA. And also during campaigns, we have our pillar on that will be fundraising. So our donate pages and our campaign-centric donation pages, they are where we drive most of our traffic to. So we run a combination of ads and both paid, we run organic, we run Google ads as well, and ADMs and whatnot. So it all depends on what period, but ongoing, our metrics are the usual. Just views, not so much unique views, because also our as you can imagine, having to adopt an animal, it's considered purchase, so it's not a single touch point. It's multiple ones. So our last touch point is what we generally record because it's quite challenging to work through the entire journey at times. And when we kind of measure that, that's what we go off, and we leave the metrics for actual visits in store. That's conversion metric that the sales team they manage. So that's that. In terms of fundraising, it's conversions and minimal abandoned carts or abandoned donations partway through. So ideally, we look at a certain cost per lead, cost per acquisition, depending on if they're regular givers or single givers, and depends on the campaign as well and what the amount is. Also, one of the metrics and an overlay for that would be the amount our audience generally donates as well. And it's a bit of a combination. If we have a high donation with a very high cost per acquisition, then that's a balance we need to strike. So while in some cases $20, $30 a lead is great, in other cases it's way too high. And in some cases, so we have an education center as well that we manage at RSPCA, an education training center and auditorium. And the cost per lead for that was at a few $100s. But for somebody to actually organize a session there would account for a few $1,000s in revenue. So that was a balance. In terms of website visits, we get about 200,000 a month, and that, of course, is dependent on what the time of year is, and also what the amount of social traffic we're directing to the website for these adoptions. The brunt of them do come from adoptions, and that's the way we kind of prefer it to be, because we find that the users that want to donate, they donate. Yes, there's a funnel to that, but they make their way through the site, and they're usually regular givers, so they know the ecosystem, they know how to get there. The adopters, they're the ones that are quite top funnel, and we have to filter them through to mid funnel where they convert in store potentially. So, and the objective and the secondary objective of the adoptions is not only to adopt, but which we leverage heat maps for, is what part of the website or pages they consume or they spend the most time at, because it's something where we can sell them in one part, but then we lose them towards the end, or we sell them in the middle, and we really need to kind of refine that, because at times once a person leaves the page, they can quite easily forget. So being able to balance that. We have one major website, and that's the RS New South Wales website. We do have campaign-based websites for, let's say, Million Paws Walk, Rescue Run, Guardian Angel. Some of them are national-based pages that filter the leads onto us as being a federated organization, but we manage predominantly the New South Wales website. Anything else is just, we lend support, but it's not something we manage. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds like for both of you, it's very kind of multifaceted as well, of not just what you manage, but kind of what you need to get out of it as well in terms of these metrics and what everyone else in the wider teams or in the wider, more national organizations even, what they care about, and what's going to help them and what's going to support you as well. Just kind of in the interest of time, I just want to make sure we have enough time for Q&A. I know some people have typed a couple of questions in the chat, so I might kind of just jump ahead a little bit, just briefly, kind of segueing into a little bit about what we've been speaking about here, about what it is actually that you guys do every day, and how many other things behind the scenes that we don't realize kind of go into in managing a website, and kind of making sure that it, the BAU is kind of as good as it can be, and kind of making sure it's as optimized as it can be. As usual, we do have a couple of resources. As a reminder, everyone here will get a copy of the slides afterwards as well, so you'll be able to get these. And the checklist, kind of in particular, I wanted to highlight of kind of what kind of responsibilities and roles that you all do every day that sometimes you won't even realize in terms of adopting a website, and where to start, where to get the low-hanging fruit from, for example, to kind of use Rupert's words before as well. And I also wanted to jump into another poll just kind of before we go into some of those questions as well. So I might kind of launch that just for additional resources also, just kind of while we start thinking a little bit more as well. One of the questions that was asked before was, let me just kind of bring this poll up. One of the questions that was asked before was around kind of how you would kind of audit the website in the first place, kind of how you kind of go into addressing that low-hanging fruit when you first come to a website, when you first inherit a website. I think, Sophie, you're probably experiencing this a little bit because you've come in and you've inherited this website, but you've obviously got a lot of support from the wider team and being able to pass the expertise to you. So how do all of you, maybe Dotan, I'll get you to kick off. How would you, when you first started, what was the first thing that you did to kind of work towards consolidation?
First thing I guess I would do to work towards consolidation, I'd do it slightly differently if I was inheriting a website that I plan to keep. But would be to, I like data, so I want to get a really, really clear picture of how the existing website is being used, what pages are most accessed, what are least accessed, what are the people's kind of friction points or bouncing out points where people bounce out. I'd like to understand it from a technical performance perspective. So whether it's, whether it's page speed, whether there's any kind of technical issues holding it back from an accessibility standpoint or a performance standpoint. And I like to look at all those different facets. So usage and traffic, technical performance across probably a few different facets of technical performance, but mainly looking at how it's performance from a speed perspective and a compliance to accessibility perspective. And to really understand the key goals for both the my stakeholders at the organization. What are the key goals there are for the people actually accessing the website? We try and do quite a bit of user testing and talking to people who use the sites, because I find you get slightly different insights. And then doing that kind of mapping process of internal ideal user journeys, external user journeys versus how people are actually using the website, because there's often a pretty big mismatch between those things.
Cool. How about you, Rupert? I mean, that probably resonates with you a little bit with the, the hopeful user journeys and the current user journeys, as well as you kind of work through your redesign.
Yeah, and echoing Dotan as well, there is a large piece on accessibility. Our donors can be quite elderly, especially our regular donors or high givers. Yep. So accessibility is extremely important, but also being able to create this, minimize or alleviate their barriers to donate or seek out information about our state, about our mission, to reinforce their decision to donate. Very similar to our adoptions as well. We also have, and this is with Monsido as well, provided a good kind of checklist of the technical SEO and the technical side of things. So the tagging, the alt tagging, which we all can be a bit lazy with, the page speed, the image size, the loading, also deprecated or outdated data or information that the policies pick up on, and doing global wide searches to be able to then identify these issues about the manual way of smashing through 800 pages and trying to find these kind of references throughout the entire website. Yeah. So
absolutely,
that's kind of the maintenance side of things. Also, with one thing we found that's extremely important for consistency is the tonality globally across the site, where everyone tends to have a slightly different tone when producing a blog page, piece, whatever, depending on the stakeholder as well. And we find that tonally there can be inconsistencies throughout the site, and I guess consistency breeds trust. And the idea is having our site visually as well as tonally consistent helps to, I guess, get our mission statement across, and also has an impact from that, garner more donations, adoptions, and satisfy our other pillars, so education system, what we do in the community, and whatnot. So there's a lot, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You can almost speak for an hour just on what can be done just to kind of improve. It's insane. It's such a complicated beast, especially when it's been not left, but it's not, you don't pay attention to it for a couple of months. You realize, oh, we've produced this much content. Suddenly now we've got an additional 30-40 pages that we've got to think about as well, which is huge. So yeah.
How large is your website as a whole at the moment? It's one of the questions as well that was asked just in the chat.
Ooh, pages that we are caveating, we are in an auditing stage at the moment.
Of course.
And we do have deprecated pages which are being picked up on and whatnot. So we're about 800 pages. We're looking to resolve that and really drop it down to the core pages. The reason why we also include blog pages and media releases, press statements, all that as part of our pages as well, while they're not relevant for this exact moment, there is something that we will need to potentially discuss later on, and we've got the information sitting on our website. So if heaven forbid there is a Google search for that, we come up on top. So a lot of pages that we have to keep just for housekeeping, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah.
For a question for Dotan in particular from Wayman is, hi Dotan, may I know how or what kind of data your team is gathering and what to do with it since it's a not-for-profit organization website?
As far as I'm lucky in that I have an analytics wizard on my team who has set up all our tagging, and I found like any organization, we capture too much data, more than we need. So what I've found really helpful is establishing what are the clear kind of goals or metrics that we need to capture, and creating dashboards for those so that stakeholders can access them themselves. Saves my team a lot of time. And I guess as far as specifics around what data we're capturing, I guess due to the sensitive nature of some of the content, use of alcohol and other drugs is quite stigmatizing. People are often scared to reach out for help. And so where possible, we want to make sure that the experience is anonymous. And so I'm quite careful around not capturing any personal data unless it's for a specific program or sign up for a newsletter. And so the data that we do capture are, the standard analytics measures, but we build in a lot of custom events because we find we have very specific goals that aren't captured in baseline analytics. And we don't use expensive tools. We use free tools for analytics and get a huge amount of insight just from those free tools. So I don't think you need to necessarily invest in really expensive analytics platforms to get the data that you need. It's really around how do you synthesize that data and create dashboards which are easily understandable and quick and easy to use. That's had the biggest impact. I don't need to jump in and dig through complex analytics. I can jump into a dashboard and filter it to my own needs.
Just a quick comment. I think Miriam said that their website was easily around 17,000 pages, so quite a lot bigger than some of the websites you guys are managing. Very
internet.
Impressive.
Yeah, that is.
Wow, Miriam, that is impressive. I really hope you're not managing that.
It's not a
solo.
competition, Miriam.
We find I find similar to you, but I try and keep it down because particularly because we're dealing with evidence-based content and we have to change 100 pages when a new piece of evidence emerges. 17,000 would be impossible.
This is too much. How big? Sorry, I'm not managing it, Miriam. You'll get there. Well, how big are your teams, in just terms of number of people in your team to kind of help you both manage your websites?
Yeah. So it's a kind of count now. So we've got one social media producer, one digital fundraising specialist, Sophie, and we're looking to get somebody else on board as an overflow. So essentially 4, and including myself, 5.
Wow.
We do leverage our developers or digital agency, and they do the heavy lifting for the really escalated code heavy pages and the bespoke solutions of our website. So essentially, we have a small team, but we have an army behind us to support us.
Amazing. How about you, Dotan? How many?
Very similar. So there's 4 people in the digital team, including myself. That's just digital. We have, a comms department. We have an evidence and content department and a marketing department. So we just look after digital and we outsource. So we work very closely with an agency partner for most of our development, similar to you, Rupert, because we have quite a few integrations and custom applications which we've built. We do some of the basic coding ourselves, but most of it is outsourced. And yeah, so just 4.
So very similar then, size teams. And
Yeah.
just in the interest of time, maybe just one more question, just while we have maybe a few moments. I know it's around on the dot now of the hour. Rupert, I think this question was more for you. So Stephen's asked, it costs a lot to produce a blog or an article. How do you ensure what is gained from that time spent creating content? How do you ensure the value is gained?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have different kinds of blogs, and I'll focus on one kind specifically. So they are seasonal comms, seasonal blogs, where it's not necessarily a numerical or ROI, where it's more so just an education piece. So around Christmas and whatnot, we tend to produce blogs that are focused on how to keep your animal and how to keep it comfortable in the heat, because we get a lot of calls overheated animals. We also have in blogs pieces on how to or what to actually feed your animal, what you can't feed your animal. I mean, during the holiday season, you have chocolates, you have hams, you have all these tasty things that are fine for us, but there is an education piece out there. So we have our educational blogs that tend to come out seasonally. Another one that we're going to be producing very soon with Sophie is kitten season, and that's along the lines of every year around this time, we have an influx of kittens due to the fact that cats give birth around this time. And this will then help educate our audiences on what to do if you find a stray kitten, what not to do, how to take care of them, do you want to foster them, what all the steps they can to let them either self-help or to potentially adopt, foster, whatever that keeps them out of our shelters. So while it doesn't have a direct numerical number behind it, it does have impact throughout the pillars. So those are our seasonal ones. It's just a regular thing that we know needs to be produced. In terms of content that's more bespoke and out of what we usually do, it's generally also looking to see what the trends are on social, what the questions are on our social posts, what we see as, okay, this is a sticking point, this is a barrier, this is something that we need to address, and we address them in a blog. Also another piece that we kind of try to add to it is, if we have a blog that's educational, we try to add a potential of a donation or a support function within that blog, so the person has the option of actually taking an action. So either a CTA to donate, a CTA to adopt, or a particular animal to adopt, or a particular filter for animals to adopt, or for them to book an education or training session with us, or sending their kids to a school holiday program. So those we try to populate with more ROI-driven CTAs, but that's just one side of what we do. Yeah, if that answers the question. It's a long-winded question. Answer.
It's all right. The longest answers is always the best, aren't they? I might kind of just wrap up there, just in the interest of time. I know that a lot of people might have had a hard stop, and I appreciate everyone staying on so long. Thank you to everyone who's kind of responded to that poll as well, just as a kind of reminder. Obviously, as always, we'd love to help. I know that some of you have experience in using Monsido in the past or in the present as well. So feel free to reach out to myself or my team, or have a response in the poll of if you'd kind of like to get a complimentary free scan or see kind of a demo, or just to find out how your website is tracking at the moment as well, and in line with your website management goals as well. So thank you for that, and a huge thank you especially to all of my guests here today. I really appreciate you all joining. Just as a reminder, thank you for Rupert from RSPCA New South Wales, and Sophie as well for sitting in from RSPCA New South Wales, and also for Datan from Alcohol and Drug Foundation. I really appreciate you all joining me today and kind of sharing your insights and the nitty-gritty of how things on your websites kind of work and how you kind of liaise with stakeholders and manage your teams and what that kind of looks like and what that process, how it evolves over time as well. So thank you especially to all of you.
Thank you, Kaz.
No worries. Yeah, I might call it there. Thank you to everyone in the chat. I'm just going to make sure that there are no last minute questions popping through that would like an answer. But if we haven't gotten into any of your questions, feel free to reach out and we can definitely help get an answer to you afterwards. And as a reminder, you'll get this recording after as well, so you're welcome to always rewatch it or share it, whatever you like. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a really lovely day ahead and enjoy your weekends as well.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.